how to make your dream their dream. It's really the art of pitching. Today I want to talk about pitching because pitching ideas for a movie or a book or a raise or a promotion, every aspect of your life involves pitching. Successfully making your dream someone else's dream should be an incredible skill that you know how to do remarkably well. So I want to go over 10 secrets that I think will help you become far more effective at pitching. Everything I do is caught up in helping you tell your story better, helping you get on the radar, helping get your dreams out there and make them happen. And I think being able to convey your dream to someone else who can make it happen, it could be an investor, it could be a studio head, it could be a publisher, it could be anyone. I think this is so incredibly important to move your career from where it is to where you want it to be. So I want to give you 10 secrets that I think are really important, things that I've discovered in my own life about how to convey my ideas to other people that have been really beneficial and made a big difference for me. 10 important principles to consider. Number one, someone once said that a great idea is the worst thing in the world if it's the only one you've got. I believe that when you go in to pitch an idea, always have 2, 3, 4 ideas when you go, particularly if it's for a specific project. You know, you've made an appointment with Mr. Big. You've gone to the trouble of scheduling with his assistant or her assistant. This is a big thing. Why go there with one idea? Because if your very first idea gets tossed out, you're stuck. And I think that he'll want to say, okay, I don't go for that one so much, but what else have you got? And if you don't have anything, you're dead in the water. So I always think of 4, 5, 6 projects I could take with me. In fact, it's funny. I've often found that project number 2 or 3 is the one they eventually pick. So don't think it's all about one idea. Now, I understand certain circumstances, you're pitching one single project and that's all. But if it's a book, a movie, whatever, you don't know what this person's interest will be. You don't know where they want to focus. You don't know what their goals are. And so, number one, going in with numerous ideas. And by the way, I love that phrase. A great idea is the worst thing in the world if it's the only one you've got. The second thing is do your homework. Do your homework, which means find out about this person you're pitching to. This woman, this man, this executive, this business leader, this studio head, whatever. Find out about what their goals are, what they want to accomplish, what they want to do. Learn a little bit about their life. I have a friend, Dean Matali, who is the executive producer and writer of television dramas. And he told me one time that he took the time to understand some background about the person he was pitching to. He went into the meeting. They had a pleasant, really great conversation about this person's background. And on the way out the door at the end of the meeting, this lady who was a studio head said, you know, it was so cool that you knew about me. You knew who I was. And guess what? He got the job. So do your homework, and it's easy. There's a thing called Google out there. We can easily search for information about whoever you're pitching to. What is their background? What is their likes? What is their dislikes? And here's a key part of that. I know in Hollywood, not every studio cares about making money. For instance, some studios would rather win an Oscar than make money. They're willing to lose money on a movie if it could win them an award or if it could bring a famous actor to them into their stable. There's a number of goals that people have when you pitch them. Doing your homework matters. By the flip side, I know people that will pitch a family story to a producer of horror movies. They didn't do their homework. Or they'll pitch a horror movie to a producer that only does family programming. They didn't do their homework. I mean, they will laugh you out of the building. So take it seriously, do your homework, find out the kind of background you need in order to pitch your project successfully. The third thing is, you know, although it may take some time, it's not just about that pitch meeting. It's about developing a relationship. I remember when I first came to Hollywood years and years ago, I brought a bag of scripts. Literally, I had a whole garbage bag full of movie scripts I'd written. And I finally got an appointment with a producer that I really admired. And I went in to see her and went into her office, and she was very gracious. She knew I was new to the industry, and she went through each script and basically dumped them all in the trash. And I thought, you know, even though she rejected what I brought and the projects I was pitching, she was so nice, so gracious, so interested in my career and helping that I decided I want to get to know this lady. So I would meet her at industry functions. I knew, you know, I found out more about her family and the things they did, got to know her a little bit. And after about a year or two, we developed a personal relationship. We became friends. So when I pitched her from that point on, it wasn't an official pitch meeting. I could just casually call her up and say, I'm thinking about a movie about this. What do you think? I'm thinking about this subject. What do you think? And that took the pressure off. Suddenly I wasn't pitching. She didn't feel obligated to listen to my pitch idea. She just wanted to be my friend. And so we developed projects together just based on that personal relationship. And it's so much nicer. It just takes that pressure off of everything being about an official pitch meeting. So try to learn things about people. Try to develop a relationship with some of the key people in your industry that you may be pitching ideas to. Number 4, this is an unusual thing. Instead of just pitching them ideas, start the meeting by asking for opinions and advice. I know producers that I could have never gotten into their office simply by saying, I want to pitch you a movie idea. Because it's awkward. It's awkward. Trust me, I get movies and all kind of ideas pitched to me, and it's awkward for me to turn someone down or to take the time to read the project or listen to them pitch. It's just awkward on both sides of the desk. So one thing I've learned is I'll often call someone up and say, you know what, I'm working on a project and I would just like your opinion about this. I'd love your advice about it. And they're happy to do that. They're happy to bring me in and listen to my idea and give me. Everybody wants to share their opinion about stuff and their idea about what you should be doing. But I've discovered that once I start them going down that road, very often they'll say, well, you know what? When you've written that script, bring it to me. I think I might like to do that. So you start off, and you're not lying, you start off because you genuinely want their ideas and advice, but that very often leads to a pitch meeting, but it does it again without that pressure of having to do an official pitch meeting. Start by asking, and trust me, anybody in whatever industry you're in wants to share their advice about stuff. People just naturally love to do that, and they're very kind to do it. So take advantage of that and always be getting their ideas, and that often will develop into an opportunity to pitch a project. Number 5, these are busy people. Never, 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 never forget. These are busy people. So limit your pitch to 3 to 5 minutes. Do not go in expecting to be there an hour. Don't plop down on the sofa and just kind of hang out. You're going in there for a very specific purpose. And so honor their schedules. I know a producer here in town that he'll say, can I have 5 minutes of your time? I'd like to come pitch you a project. When that 5 minutes is up, that producer will leave. Even when the network executive wants him to stay, he'll say, no, you know what? You gave me 5 minutes. I want to honor that, and I want to respect your time. And he'll walk out. Guess what? That producer always gets invited back. Always gets invited back because that studio executive knows that this guy honors his or her time. So think about making your pitch in 3 to 5 minutes. That's kind of where the elevator pitch concept came to. If you can't pitch your project in 3 to 5 minutes or less, then trust me, you don't know the project well enough and you're not ready to go into a pitch meeting. So always think in terms. I've had people come and pitch me ideas and I'll say, well, what you got? And they start with, well, see, you need to understand, when I was in high school, I broke my leg. And of course, my dad didn't have a job. And so I got, we went to the hospital and it got set wrong and it caused a lot of I'm already bored. Get to the point. What are you trying to pitch? What do you want me to do is incredibly important. So always think about limiting 3 to 5 minutes. Sharpen the sword. Go in there with a spear ready to go on what you're trying to accomplish. Number 6, a treatment, photos, demonstrations. They're nice, but don't get too cute. I'll tell you, the coolest, the fanciest pitch rarely ever wins. It's all about content. Just remember, these people get pitches for a living. Whatever industry you're in, it may be an executive or a Hollywood studio or a doctor's office or whatever you're trying to get across or pitch, whoever your customer is, they're used to this. So they're looking for content, not fancy. So I had a guy pitching me a movie one time and he had watercolors of every major scene he'd done that he wanted me to go through and look at. Boring. Another person had a tape of audio, music cues that they had created for the movie. Nobody cares about that. You're going to redo all that anyway. So just make sure the script really rocks. If you want a treatment that's short and sweet so they can read and get the idea real quickly, that's great. But don't worry about having photos of all the major scenes. Don't worry about having dialogue done. If you want to make a sizzle reel, that's a big common thing in Hollywood now, is to do a sizzle reel, just a short little teaser of what that TV series or that movie may be. That's okay. But don't think in terms of getting too cute. You don't need the marching band to show up in the parking lot outside the executive's office. It's incredibly important. Number 7, after the meeting, after you've done the pitch, after you've gone home, give them time to think about it. Give them time to think about it. I once had a guy that came and pitched me a movie project, and literally he called me on his way home from my meeting and said, "Hey, have you thought about it? Would you like to do it?" I'm not going to work with that guy. I'm not going to work with that guy. Give the guy time. Now, what that time is varies. It could be a week. At the very minimum, it should be a week. Just give the person time to read the script or think about this or do his homework, whatever. Maybe 2 weeks. You can always check in later, but just give him some space. The minute you feel like you're pushing too much, guess what? He or she is going to push back, and they're not going to be interested in doing the project. So always think, I'm not here to drive them crazy. I'm here to make them want to do the project. There's a great line from an opera singer about always stop singing before the audience has stopped listening. Boy, that's great advice in a pitch. So don't drive them crazy, constantly calling them, "Hey, what do you think? What do you think? You ready to go?" Always back up and give them a little space to decide for themselves what they want to do before you start following up. Number 8, learn to listen. Learn to listen. I've had some horrible experiences with this. I travel a lot. I travel more than most human beings, so it's hard to get an appointment with me. And I had a young man wanted to really talk to me about his career and a couple ideas he had that he wanted to accomplish with his life. And he waited months to get an appointment because I was on the road so much. And we finally scheduled it. I scheduled an hour for this young guy. And he walked in, we shook hands, he sat down and started talking. Literally 55 minutes later, I had to wave my hands in front of him and say, stop, I have to go. We booked an hour for this. And I actually said, I don't know why you scheduled this time. You could have stayed home and talked for an hour. I don't have time to help you. I don't have time to offer you advice. I don't have time to give you my thoughts. I have to leave and go to my next meeting. I think there's a part of us that when we get to be, when we're with somebody we respect or we're with somebody we admire, we feel like we have to tell them our story. We just have to get it all out there. We have to, this is our big moment. So we talk. That is not true. That's not the case. I was at the Sundance Film Festival a few years ago, and I was with Mark Burnett and Roma Downey. And when I'm with Mark Burnett, I don't want to talk. I want to hear what Mark Burnett has to say. I'm not interested in driving him nuts with what I think about everything. I just really wanted to soak in what he was telling me about primetime television, about his career, what he had learned. I don't want to talk. I want to hear what he has to say. So just remember, when you're with somebody that you want to impress, you want to pitch, you want to share something with, don't feel like you have to drive the conversation or you have to do all the talking. It is not the case. In fact, I'll give you a great story. I pitched a project, a documentary project to a guy in Chicago, and he was a big producer in Chicago, had done a number of big projects, and I wanted to do a documentary, and I went to him, walked into his office. I've told this story a number of times. I walked into his office, and he was literally yelling at someone on the phone. It's a producer he had just worked with, and apparently it did not go well. And he was just reaming this guy out about what went wrong and what he didn't like, and he was just angry. And so I let him go. He talked for probably 10, 12 minutes yelling at this guy, and I just stood there politely in his office and didn't say a word. Then he slammed the phone down at the end of the conversation and just started venting to me about all the problems he'd had with this producer and all the things that had gone wrong with his project. It had gone over budget. It had gone way beyond the scheduled time. Just on and on and on and on. Again, I didn't say a word. I just didn't try to be nice, didn't try to encourage him. I just sat there and listened. And after about 15 minutes of doing that, I mean, literally, our meeting was almost up. After the 15 minutes of just venting about this project to me, he finally took a deep breath, just went, "Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks so much for listening. Look, whatever it is you want to do, we'll do your project." He's felt so guilty that he just did my project, and I never said a word. Never said a word. So the whole point is, don't feel like you have to constantly be pitching or constantly talking. Be sensitive. One of the greatest skills you'll ever learn is learning how to read the room. When you walk into the room, understand who the players are, but understand what the mood of those players are. What are the relationship dynamics going on in the room? Who are the people that will make that decision? That's incredibly important. Reading a room is important. So knowing when to talk, when not to talk, when to listen, when to say nothing, that's an incredibly, incredibly important skill. Now, on top of that, let me go to number 9, which is there will often be an unexpected guest. When you go in to pitch your project, you could be asking for a raise, you could be pitching a movie or a book idea, whatever. Very often you'll go in and there's an unexpected guest there. Now, you made the appointment with Mr. Big or Mrs. Big, you don't know. You made the appointment with them, and suddenly you go in and there's this guy. Who's this guy with a girl, whoever? There's somebody there, and very often they won't introduce themselves to you. What the mistake most producers make is they just ignore that guest and they focus on Mr. Big. After all, he is the guy that you came to pitch. He's the guy that can make the decision. So you come in, you just say, I don't know who that is. I'm just going to ignore them and focus on Mr. Big. That's a huge mistake. Huge mistake. Largely because the minute, no matter how your pitch goes, the minute you walk out the door, the first thing Mr. Big is going to do is turn to that person and say, well, Bob, what did you think? And if you diss that person or if you ignored that person, they're going to say, well, honestly, I didn't like that guy very much. I didn't like that idea very much. And you're dead. You're dead. So you don't know if that's his girlfriend. You don't know if it's his golfing buddy. You don't know who that is. Or if it's another person in the firm, you don't know who that is. But let me tell you, when you go into that meeting, if there's an unexpected guest, introduce yourself. Embrace that person as part of the group. And you pitch to that person just as much as you pitch to Mr. Big. Because trust me, when you walk out, you want that person to turn to him and say, whoa, that girl was amazing. She had a great pitch. I loved what she was doing. That was brilliant. That's the kind of support you want and those kind of things. So this is really sounds strange, but the unexpected guest problem happens a lot. And just a ton of producers fail because they didn't embrace that person. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't talk to her or him the way they talked to Mr. Big. So always think in terms of embracing that person and making that unexpected guest part of the conversation. And the last thing, number 10, is before you walk in the door, know what success will mean for them. This goes back to my earlier comment about some studios would rather lose money if they could make an Oscar, if they could win an Oscar. Some studios want to break into a new genre. They'd rather lose money. They'd be willing to lose money in order to be famous in a new genre of film or to make a relationship with a star. And there's a lot of things, whether you're pitching for a raise, whether you're pitching for a promotion, whatever the idea is, a book. Understand what success means to that organization, that leader, that company. That's very, very important because you want your project to be the key not only to your success, but your key to their success. That's why I say at the beginning of this, how to make your dream their dream. You know, it's Dale Carnegie in his classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that he wrote back in the 40s or 50s, talks about the fact that you can tell a person to do something and they'll do it. But if you let them think it's their idea, they will work themselves to the bone to make it happen. They will exert an incredible, incredible effort. So always, if you can make your dream their dream, if you can give them ownership of it, if you can think of ways that this is something that will help them succeed, man, you've accomplished a huge hurdle because then they'll be more open to fighting for it and helping that dream happen. So I would just say is maybe a little bonus point to this whole thing about pitching. It's not an act. It's not an act. You know, if you come into my office and you're talking to me about ideas, I can look in your eyes and tell in 2 minutes, 2 seconds even, if you're serious or you're just trying to con me. If you're really interested in me. I had a vice president at Coca-Cola tell me one time that if you're genuinely interested in a client and his family, they'll be your client for life. Because they get hit up by so many people that just want to advance their career or sell their products or position their company or their ideas. But if you're genuinely interested in developing a relationship with that person, they can tell. They can tell a mile away. And they can also tell if it's a con. They can also tell if you're just there for yourself. So it's not about faking it. It's not about being inauthentic. It's not about just trying to get by. It's about being honest, being real, being authentic with that person, being genuinely interested. As leaders, we should be doing that anyway. There's no question about that. But the truth is, very often we get so caught up in the idea that we're trying to pitch that very often it makes us look crazy. We're trying too hard. We drive them nuts. So always thinking, what can I do to help that person succeed? What can I do to help them cross the line? And if you can do that, I think it's incredibly important. So never forget, pitching is something you do every day. Think about it. It's about persuasion. It's about getting someone else to do something you need done, helping you achieve your dream, helping make their dream happen along the way. So I hope you've gotten something out of this, because I do think it's incredibly important. Listen to it again. Listen to it again, because these principles will dramatically change the direction and the course of your career. And in the meantime, come see me at philcooke.com, my website, philcooke.com. If you sign up for my weekly newsletter, you can download a free ebook on creativity. Love for you to have it, because I think it'll expose you to some fantastic ideas, all at philcooke.com. Thanks. Learn to pitch. It could change the direction of your career.